Okay, so tonight's talk is going to be about Gemara. It's divided in two parts. I purposely did it that way because I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information at the beginning. Um, and I actually prepared a this is objectives and topics covered. I'm not going to go over all of it with you, but this PowerPoint is in your folder, so you can look it up. You can look it up now also, but I'm going to be working my way through these things. I'll do it very briefly. There are two objectives. One we're going to do tonight, and the other one we're going to be doing on Sunday. The first objective is that the learner, that you guys, will be confident to be able to understand the Mishnah well enough to be able to assist the child with homework with the aid of an art scroll or another English translation. So in other words, tonight we're going to be working our way up until finishing Mishnah. And on Sunday, we're going to do to navigate pages of Gemara, read the Gemara, and follow the Gemara's logical flow. And I'm going through these agenda items, the background of Mishnah, how Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral Torah, was transmitted, how it changed, getting familiar with the pages of a Gemara and the filing system, so to speak, for Mishnah and Gemara, how all this information was collected. And then I'm going to help you. Probably the most important part is it's like reading between the lines. You need a whisperer. I'll explain it to you as we go. Um, here's, I'd like to start with this. I know it might seem like a little downer, but I think that it's helpful to be honest and candid with the reality of life. And let's have a discussion, an honest discussion of the challenges of mastering Gemara. Okay? And let's go through them. We're going to be able to overcome them, but a reality check is important. And that's why tonight's talk and Sunday night's talk is so important, because I'm hopeful that you'll really get the tools to be able to do this on your own. If you don't, we'll have a Q&A on Monday night. And if you need be, I'll be glad to schedule another one with you after the Chagim, after the Yom Tovim. We'll figure something out. If you still need help, I'll be delighted to help you. That's an open offer. So there's number one is a language barrier. You have Aramaic and Hebrew. So even if you are fluent in Hebrew, which many of us aren't, Aramaic is a different language. It's similar in many ways, but it's a challenge. There's no punctuation. If you look at a page of Gemara, it's a little intimidating. There's absolutely no stops and starts. There are sometimes you'll have a few of them, but it's only every couple of pages, or less than that, or more than that, but there's generally very little in the way of punctuation and other guides to be able to follow the flow. The historical context, just to find who are these people, how did Gemara evolve, why is it important to learn? Number four, and this is a very big one, everybody in Gemara speaks in insider talk. And in other words, a significant knowledge base is missing. This is a really big deal. And Gemara was a discussion among scholars. And if you went to any group of scholars, and if you went to mathematicians, if you went to philosophers, and they started throwing words around and phrases, you just like, so Gemara, the assumption is that you're on, you're not on a beginner level. If I may start with a true, really funny story that happened to me personally. I started my career in Jewish education in 1982. I started teaching eighth graders. I did Gemara, Chumash, and Navi with them. I did my very best to help them out. Many of the kids came to me extraordinarily frustrated that they've been purportedly learning Gemara for a couple of years, but never really got it. And then like the train just gets away from them. So I did this, just like I mentioned by Chumash, in the Chumash class, I did a version of this without these beautiful tools that Rabbi Spivak, the superstar author of these books, made, but I really spent time doing fundamentals as if they were just starting Gemara. But this insider talk, what happened was there were a few friends of mine who were in the carpet business, right? Carpet and, linoleum like that. They have floor covering business. They had a show in Atlanta on a Motzei Shabbos, on Sunday morning, excuse me. They wanted to be with their families for Shabbos. I lived in Monsey at the time. So um, they wanted to be with their families, but they had to make that very first 6 a.m. flight. So one of my friends asked me if I could drive them. I said, fine. So he brought a couple of colleagues with him. So here I was driving the car. My friend was next to me. In the back, there were two or three other carpet people. And they said hello. They were very polite. And then they were talking shop and they were making carpet jokes and carpet statements I didn't know what they were talking about. And they literally were making jokes. Like they'd say, like, hey, you know what happened? I had Joey on a job and he was whatever, he was putting in the carpet and he used the C1412. They used code for talking about a foolish mistake. Everybody was laughing. I had no idea what they were talking about. We got to the outer ring of Newark Airport and I told them, I said, guys, I know you'll be kind enough to thank me, but I'm thanking you first because now I know what my students feel like. I told them, I said, now I know what my students who aren't knowledgeable in Gemara yet, what they feel like when I'm talking insider talk with an assumption that they have certain background information. And I swore to myself, I went and told later in the day, Sunday morning, the kids came to school. I told them the story. They were howling. They thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And I promised them that I would never say anything without explaining it. And if I violated the rule, they should absolutely raise their hand. And if it happens a few times over the course of a month or two, I'm going to give them 2 hours off and go play basketball with them. So I said, so test me. So this is a very big deal. I'm going to show you what the solution is. Following the logical thread of the deductive reasoning, there's a question and answer, a proof, refuting a proof. So there's a lot of that logic there. Gemara is all textual. When you're reading it, it's textual. If somebody reads it to you, a teacher is saying it, it's auditory. We know that 70% of people learn best visually, and there don't seem to be very many visual tools. We're going to talk about that also as a barrier. For some children, very often independent thinkers, that like, why do I need to know this? We'll get to that as well. And finally, for children, the analogies that are used in Gemara, the examples that they give, were given 2,000 years ago. So they're going to be talking about animals and the typical example of Gemara is one ox goring another, right? So like, imagine if I started giving you an example with cassette tapes or an 8-track player. Like I date myself and it just doesn't seem too relevant. So here's an action plan that I want to talk to you about. The first two, in other words, the Aramaic and the lack of punctuation, please just park it for now. Don't even think about tackling that. Use an English Gemara, a translation like an Art Scroll. There are others, but Art Scroll is the most popular one. So they have nakudos, they have dots, punctuation there, this translation. I'm going to show you fantastic tools that they have to really help your learning. So please just don't even start with those first two. You have whatever you can get, especially when you're starting a new subject, whatever help you can get, take it. If you decide to wean yourself off these tools at one point in time, great. And if not, that's also fine. Okay, historical context, that's the first thing we're going to be talking about. The insider talk, I'm going to show you how Art Scroll and others use fill-in information to give you the basics. I mean, Art Scroll is masterful at that. I really spent a lot of time today adding to the presentations that I've given like this in the past and showing you more information about those tools. The logical thread, I'm going to walk you through what we use in our Bright Beginnings books, which is actually codifying all discussion by one of 8 logical components. Okay, we're going to talk about what you can do to get visual tools for your children if they don't understand something. And at the end, we're going to talk about relevancy and what you could do as far as the references. And I'm going to give you some examples, okay? So, and here are some resources on top there. If you want to look something up, the ichinuch.org is a beautiful a resource that Torah Masora has, where teachers across North America, Rabbeim Morris, teachers post material there for other teachers to use. I'm not sure if civilians can get on. I think you can. I'm not sure. Look at that website. It's ichinuch.org. Tel Am has a beautiful program. A lot of it's in Hebrew, though. I list some of our workbooks and some other links to that. So feel free to avail yourself of this. So now, this is actually the first pages of an introduction to Gemara workbook that we published at Right Beginnings. I'm the publisher, and the Rabbi Spivak wrote this. Rabbi Spivak I hired him to be our 5th beginner Gemara Rebbe in our yeshiva. I can't take much credit for his super talent, but I was his 8th grade Rebbe in yeshiva a lifetime ago. But he's an incredible human being, and he's so talented. So it's set up really like a textbook: content, questions, and let's get right through it. So I'm not going to read it all, of course. And on the left side over here, look at the cursor. There are translation words that the kids, if you remind me, I'll try to, somebody message me, please, not now, when we're done. I'll try to put the vocabulary words in, there's a PDF with them. I'll try to remember to put them in your folder. So originally, the Torah was given from Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu at Mount Sinai, at Har Sinai. And the Torah itself really doesn't give us much in the way of details. If it was, the Torah would be hundreds of times larger than it is. In other words, all of Chumash, think of, let's say, Shabbos. Think of the incredible body of knowledge on Hilchos Shabbos, on the laws of Shabbos. There's only a few psukim, a few verses in the whole Torah that talk about Shabbos. Zachar Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho. Remember the day of Shabbos to make it holy. Shamar Yom HaShabbos. Sheshis Yom, you should work for 6 days and rest on the 7th day. That's really it. It doesn't talk about cooking and turning lights on and using electricity. So it's cliff notes. The Torah gives, so there originally was set up as this Torah Shebiksav. Ksav is written. Shebiksav, if you did the Chumash book, right, 2 prefixes, that is written down, which was Chumash and Navi, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, the 5 Megillos, Tehillim. So all of that body of knowledge was committed to parchment, right? It was, and the rest was given. Hashem gave it to Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai. All the various halachos that you look up in Shulchan Aruch or the Rambam, which is who codified Jewish law. But in the Chumash itself, the Torah Shebiksav has very little. Tefillin is pasuk, take tefillin, and it doesn't say which parshiyos are written and what color the straps should be. So Shabbos, almost all of our halachas are like that. So this was handed down from Rebbe to Talmud. There are some more details. I'm not going to go into them now. You can look them up. That little chart here. Again, you have this PDF, so you can look over everything, and you can look over these review questions as well. But there's more detail. There's nuances between halacha l'Moshe Sinai. It's not important for your knowledge right now. All we need to know for now is that there's a body of knowledge that was written down, and there was a body of knowledge that was committed to memory. And some of the commentaries say that this was baked into the cake of Jewish tradition and Jewish life and learning, that we should have to have a Rebbe, that it was a teacher, and that was a part of it. because there's so much nuance and there's so much to learn. But be that as it may, that was done orally. This is lesson 2. Again, please feel free to go over them. I purposely put all of these sheets in the PowerPoint so you can have all of it. So Hashem gave it to Moshe. Moshe gave it to Yehoshua. Yehoshua, gave it to Pinchas ben Elazar, the son of HaKohen, and it went on from generation to generation. There is, not for now, but if you're interested, you can do a Google search. There's a list of exactly how it went down through the generations. And all of this was committed to memory. So a Rebbe would sit around with his students and teach them the oral Torah, and they would stay and learn, and when they were ready, he would empower them to go teach others. That's basically how it was done. But you read through our history, we had so much churn and turmoil and destruction and exile. I mean, the fact that we were able to maintain our tradition is just remarkable. Think of all the cultures and nations that disappeared. And I think having the Torah and that Masorah, that tradition, was a big part of it. But what happened was, during the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, they started that tradition started to fray a bit. And you can see in this green paragraph, Shammai and Hillel had many arguments because it may not have gone down to them as precisely as they wanted to, as it could have been, because of people's perhaps memories, weren't perfect. Anytime you transmit something orally, you're going to have some loss, or have differences of opinion. But then what happened when things really started to unravel? Look at this. Look where my cursor is. It was during the time of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Nasi was like the leader, like the titular head of the Jewish people, and he was called Rebbe. We referred to him as Rebbe because he was such a great scholar, and as a term of endearment, he was called a Rebbe. And in order, even though the tradition was not to write oral Torah down, he, quoting a pasuk, I'm even leaving the pasuk out, he quoted a verse that says that sometimes you need to break a law in order to maintain the law. So he said that from now on, we're going to commit the oral Torah, which was only Mishnah, not Gemara yet. It was only Mishnah, would be committed to paper. And they started the process of sitting down and organizing all this information. And, I guess in the vernacular, the best example would be in our PC at home, we have, folders and subfolders, right? So you'll have personal and work, and within personal, you'll have health matters and finances and things that you're writing, pictures of the kids, whatever. So we subdivide those folders to make it easy to retrieve. And so this is the first thing. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this because this is kind of important. Again, you'll have this video, you'll have the PDF, feel free, and you'll have me. So what Rebbe did was he made 6 books, not more than books, like orders, Seder. It's called Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. That's the word Shas comes from that. So Shisha, 6 Sidrei Mishnah, Sidarim of Mishnah. And if you look here on the left side, I hope you can see it. If not, you can review it later. You can look at it later. The categories, the broad categories were Zeraim. Zera means a seed. So all halachas related to planting. Planting crops in Eretz Yisrael required them to give some to the Kohen, give some to the Levi, give some to poor people. So all of those things, anything related to the cycle of of working the fields and producing crops would be under Zerayim. Moed is probably the most famous one that goes to holidays like Chol HaMoed. Moed is a Yom Tov. So those are the halachas of Yom Tov and Shabbos. Then you have Nashim, which means women, but it's basically marriage and divorce. All halachas of Gittin, getting a divorce, Kedushin, getting married, Yivamos. So that goes in. Then Nezikin is tort law, damages, which also occupies a very, very big part of Gemara learning. And then we have Kachim, which is not that commonly learned because their halachas are challenging, and it really, most of this was only applicable during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. So that's Kachim, things relating to Karbanos, how they're brought, and Taharos, which is the rules of Tumah and Tahara, of ritual purity. Okay, so what happened was they had folders and subfolders. So, and I'm going to show you soon how that would work. We're going to find a Mishnah, and I'm going to break it down for you soon. So each Seder, again, there are 6 Sedarim, were divided into Masechtas. So a Masechta it's called typically a tractate, or a book. And the Masechta was broken into prakim, into prakim chapters, and each chapter had mishnayos, individual mishnos. A mishnah is singular, mishnayos is plural. So let's make it real. If we were looking up now, if you wanted to learn some Gemara about Rosh Hashanah this year, you would look for Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, the tractate, the book that has all the Gemara Mishnah about Rosh Hashanah, and you would look in Moed. So the 1 out of 6 categories, it would be in Moed, and then you would look for a volume called Rosh Hashanah. There's a volume called Yuma that we're going to be learning something from soon. Yom means day. The day is the holiest day of the year. Then there's Sukkot and Pesachim. So that's probably the one that's most common that is found in Moed. Okay? So last thing we're going to do before we get started on some learning is to navigate your way around the page of Gemara. So this here is the way a page of Gemara looks. You don't have to memorize this now because you can look it up later. You can refer to it later. But basically, the format is this in the middle here. That's the actual text of Mishnah and Gemara. Mishnah is written in very short, few words, and basically stating halachos, rules, or other things like that. And Gemara was written down many years later. It was also committed to paper, and that has discussions around the Mishnah, asking questions, trying to make sure that people had the right tradition from their Rabbeim. As I said, remember, Hillel and Shammai already, things were starting to fray. And you do not need to know this, but just to navigate around the page, on the inside part of the page is Rashi's commentary, where I'm showing you. Rashi is an acronym for Rab Shimon Yitzchaki, the preeminent commentator. He wrote a Pirush on Chumash, a commentary on Chumash, on Navi, on Gemara. And on the outside over here it's called Tosfos. Mosef means to add. Yes, Shlomo, did I say thank you. Thank you, Michelle, Shlomo Yitzchaki. Sorry about that. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, good. So the page on the outside of the page is Tosfos. That Tosfos means to add. It was an additional commentary, mostly asking questions about the Gemara and very often challenging Rashi on some of his commentary. Parenthetically, the people who wrote Tosfos were called the Balei Tosfos, the people of Tosfos who wrote the additional commentary. Rashi was actually originally referred to as a kuntris, like a pamphlet, because his writings were not originally in the Gemara. So that's just navigating your way around the page. The main Gemara is in the middle. Now, there is no specific format that has to be laid out a certain way. This is just the way it was done. And there were many printings of Gemara. There was a Shas, all of Gemara, all the books of Gemara was printed in a city called Vilna. And people liked the way that format worked. And because a lot of it has to do with retrieving memory and being able to find, we wanted to have the same system of pagination. So virtually everyone started using this format of Vilna Shas. So if you go to any Svarim store or any shul, virtually all of them will have this same format with Rashi in the middle. I'll show you, if you look here on top, in the middle, it says there, I believe it says Perek Rishon. I'll show it to you when we get to an actual Gemara page, but this is just the way to navigate around the page. And the page numbers, there's a lot of information. Forgive me. The page numbers are if you ever heard the term a blat Gemara, a blat is two sides of a page. So a two-sided page is referred to as a blat or a daf, and an amud means one side. So what it would sound like is, I'm on daf, I'm on page 21, amud beis, side 2, and there are two dots. I'll show you in a moment how that, in a larger format, how it goes. Okay, so that's basically just going through the history of how Gemara evolved. Again, everything was, Mishnah and Gemara were all transmitted orally. After a while, the people started to forget and the oral tradition started to fade. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi committed them to paper, wrote them down, and had six orders, six siddharim, and we just had those couple of slides ago, right? Zerayim, Moed, Nashim, Nezikin, Kachim, and Taharos. Okay, so this is a page actually from the Gemara, reprinted with ArtScroll's permission. Just if you see, this is Schattenstein edition. He was the donor that underwrote a great deal of this tremendous work. Talmud Bavli, if you want to get more confused, Bavli goes from Bavel, Babylonia, and there was a Gemara that was written in Bavel that was the main Gemara, and there's actually a Talmud Yerushalmi that was written in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim. No need to know that. All we're going to be discussing is Talmud Bavli. When people say Gemara, this is what they mean. But look here on bottom. It says the ArtScroll series, the Horn edition of Seder Moed. Okay, so Horn family donated it, but you see it says Seder Moed. The Seder that it's in is Moed because its Masechta is here, Masechtas Yuma. Yom means a day, I said before, and the holiest day of the year is referred to as Yuma, the day, and all halachas related to Yom Kippur will be found in that section. Okay, I actually went to a shul this morning to just make a copy of take a slide, a picture of what the Shas would look like laid out, the Gemaras. So this is actually, these are all Moed. I think that the last one on the right side is also, I believe, yes. Now, let me walk you through it. Over here in Hebrew, I'm doing the spine of this book, is Talmud Bavli, the Talmud, the Gemara of Bavel, of Babylonia. Then here, let's do this one. Mesechtas Psachim here. Tractate Psachim in English. That means if you're looking for, and you do the same with Mishnayos, if you're looking for a Mishnah called Psachim, you say, oh, that belongs in the order, in the Seder of a Moed. and you would look up a psachim. Because the proper translation of Gemara requires sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6 pages of translation for one page of Gemara. The art scroll Gemaras are much thicker and there's much more heft to it. There's a lot more content than a regular Gemara would be. So have a look here. This is important. You see Psachim that has 1 dot, 2 dots, and 3 dots. That's Art Scroll's code for saying this is volume 1 of Psachim, this is volume 2, this is volume 3. Okay, so that's how you would look it up if it came to a Gemara. And what we're going to be doing today, now, is we're going to be finding a piece in Masechtas Yuma. So in Masechtas Yuma, which is part of Moed, and that also has 2 volumes. That has 2 volumes to it. Okay, if you want to look at even closer, this is it's not really necessary. A lot of shuls, what they'll do, you'll see these numbers. If you go into a Beis Medrash and a shul and you want to find svarim in the bookshelf, many shuls will have a very sophisticated code or simple codes of which books. In other words, all Chumash books and books on Chumash will have orange circles like that or tags. And so this here, I guess some of the tags fell off. You'll see many shuls will have markers to help guide you towards any books you might want. Okay, now let's go. Let's roll up our sleeves, and we're going to actually start learning a Mishnah. Now, here's how the pages look. This is Yuma. On the top here, it says the name of the Gemara, which is Yuma. It's the 3rd parak of Yuma, and the title of the title of the parak is called Amar Lahem Hamamuna, which you don't need to know the meaning of that. Usually, almost always, I think always perhaps, the name of the parak are the first couple of words that are in the parak itself. So the way Art Scroll did this, we're going to be, you see, I don't know if you can see it well enough. In the Gemara has running commentary. I told you with no nakudas, this mem saf nun there stands for masnisim, which means Mishnah. And you'll see a little bit later on, my cursor is down here. It actually finishes the Mishnah. The Mishnah is between these 2 red lines. And then we go back to Gemara, but there's no break. It just says Gimel Mem for Gemara. And on this side, there's a lot of getting used to Art Scroll's code for doing things. The commentary for Gemara on the English side, on the other page, is always 2 columns, and Mishnah goes across both columns. And you see how it says over there Mishnah. And on the bottom, they have footnotes. So there's a lot of, getting to learn this real estate. If you're going to be doing this yourself or with your children, you definitely, I couldn't encourage you more strongly to learn it from an Art Scroll or other translation. So I want you to work your way to know your way around this page. Art Scroll also has a cute system because, like I said, all of this commentary, the translation of the Gemara, the translation of the Mishnah, and the footnotes all cover, you see this gray stripe here? You see the gray stripe? So, excuse me. So that gray stripe means that this is the first page of the translation, and that's found on this side. So this, in the corner there, it says 31b with a little number 1 there. That means it's you see here it says Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. That's page 31 with 2 dots, means it's the 2nd side. And here on the other side, it says 31b, but Art Scroll added a 1 because the commentary doesn't cover all of this page. In fact, I took a picture of the next page for you. You see the gray stripe slides down. So if you're looking, in other words, if you pick up an Art Scroll Gemara and there's no line, there's no gray bar where you're looking, you got to switch to a different page. So this would be where I made that red stripe there, that says 31b2. So it's the second page of English translation of this piece of Gemara. Okay, now here we go. Let's get rolling. This is the actual text of the Mishnah. And if you remember, I said at the beginning, one of the barriers is that we're talking about insider information, right? That everybody, people who really know Gemara know this stuff. But even if you translate it, if you got over the Nukudos barrier, by the way, here it's listed without Nukudos. If you just for historical record, Rabbi Meir Zlotowitz, the head of ArtScroll, he was the visionary genius who did all of this. He was very, very close to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein and his son, Rab David. And one of the things they said is they wanted the Gemara printed in the Hebrews, in the Aramaic side. It should not have Nakudos. It should appear like a regular Gemara. If you look back to this here, so you say, well, what does it help me? If you look at this, here it is listed with Nakudos. So the translation here on top of Gemara and the Mishnah all have Nakudos, punctuation, and so much more, which I'll get to now. Now, we're only going to do a few words, but of this Mishnah in Yuma. What I'm going to show you is how almost impossible it is to understand what's going on, even if you can translate the words. I call it a whisperer. If you don't have somebody whispering in your ear, the translation, not the translation only, but the backstory. You need so much more because, as we'll see, look, I'll tell you exactly what it means. And let me just do just the regular translation. Pashat means he removed. Yarad is he went down. Yerida is to go down. V'taval, he toiveled. He went to toivel, it would seem to be in a mikveh, right? Tefillah, as you say, we went to toivel in a mikveh. Allah, he got up, doesn't say who it is yet. V'nistapek, and he dried himself. Heviulo, they brought to him big day zahav, his gold clothing. V'lavash, he got dressed. V'kidash yadav v'raglav, and he made holy his hands and his feet. So this is our body of learning for tonight. Okay? Just these words. What does this mean? So, but once you get the backstory, you'll see that, it's learnable. You could learn it if somebody's whispering in your ear, gives you an introduction, which ArtScroll does a magnificent job of providing you with everything you need. So Pashat, so the backstory there's a number of backstories here. One of them is this is talking about Yom Kippur and the Kohen Gadol. There were Kohanim, regular Kohanim, civilian Kohanim, and there was one Kohen Gadol, the head. It started with Aaron HaKohen. Moshe Rabbeinu's brother was the first Kohen Gadol. The regular civilian Kohanim, it was called a Kohen Hedyot, a regular Kohen, wore 4 articles of clothing, and there was no gold on it. So they had like a very large shirt that went down to the knees. They had a hat. They had a binder, like a gartel, a wrapping that went around their waist, and they had pants that like very long shorts that went past their knees. So that was worn by the regular Kohen. The Kohen Gadol had garments, 8 garments. Some of those extra ones were made out of gold. He had a breastplate of gold on his forehead. He had a choshen. He had whatever. There was gold in the Kohen Gadol's clothing. So another thing to know is that on Yom Kippur, the only one who did the avoda, the service, was the Kohen Gadol. During the year, they had mishmaros, they had shifts, so that everybody all Kohanim got a chance to work. But on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol had to do every single thing himself. Nobody was able to do any of the service of the day except for the Kohen Gadol. Now, we know sometimes when we have relationships with people we love, we have some sore subjects, right? That just, that we work our way through with God's help, but or not. But that we have some subjects that bring up core memories. The egel, the golden calf, was made out of gold, and it was the biggest sin that the Jewish nation had done at that time. So again, it sounds simplistic, but there's a representation there. So the Kohen Gadol, when he did specific avoda, specific service that had to be for Yom Kippur only, he did not wear those extra 4 garments of gold, because when he's asking for tshuva, let's not bring up the whole gold thing to God. Now, of course, Hashem, you have to understand it on a deeper level, but that's what it says. Simply stated, that was the deal. So he wound up changing his clothing several times during the day as he transitioned from regular things that he did, that korbanos that were brought every day, and specialty items that were for Yom Kippur. Okay, every time the Kohen Gadol changed his clothing, he would go to the mikveh. They built him a mikveh very close to where the avodah was, so he shouldn't have to run around. And each time he changed, he toveled, he went to the mikveh, dried himself, put on the new clothing, and then he went, like we would wash our hands at the sink. There was a kiyar, and he washed his hands and his feet there. It was a water vessel in the Beis Hamikdash and in the Mishkan beforehand, and he would wash his hands after bathing before going back to the avodah. Now, let's go back now. So that's only background information. It's a lot, but if you know it, you know it, and I'll show you how ArtScroll perfectly lays it out for you. So, Pashad, he took off this. So this Mishnah is talking about the Kohen Gadol when he first arrived in the Beis Hamikdash to start the avodah. So he was wearing his street clothing. He was wearing civilian clothing, not the clothing of the Kohen Hedyot, of the regular Kohen, the 4, and not the 8, not 4 plus 4, the priestly garments that only the Kohen Gadol wore. But so these were his street clothing. Pashad, he took off his clothing. Yarad, he went down the steps to the mikveh, the tavel, and he taveled himself. Allah, he got up, the nistapek, and he dried himself. Heviu lo, they brought to him big day zahav, his gold clothing, which means all 8. It means the regular ones plus the big day zahav. The lavash, he would put them on, and after he was dressed, by getting dressed, he would touch himself in private parts that are considered tamei. So v'kidash, and he would make holy yadav v'raglav, his hands and his feet. Okay, that's what the Mishnah says. So this Mishnah that seemed incomprehensible, with the back information, it's clear what happened. It's describing the first time he came to the Beis Hamikdash, the morning of Yom Kippur. Now, one thing we would know, a hint would be, if you have somebody whispering in your ear, big day zahav means it's going to be an avodah that's not specific for Yom Kippur. If you look, we're not doing this now, but just to show you, heviu lo es hatamid, they brought him the carbon tamid. Tamid means constant. There were brackets. There were 2 carbonas that were brought every day. A tamid in the morning as the first carbon, and a tamid in the evening that was the last carbon. So this was a carbon that was used, that was done on a regular basis. So he would use his golden clothing, and he would take them off when he did his first avodah. So I'm going to show you some whispers, somebody whispering in your ear, to being able. First, I'm going to show you the slides that my Rebbe in the yeshiva, our 4th grade Rebbe, who started teaching Mishnayos, made this Masechtas Yuma, right? We know that Perek Gimel, 3rd Perek, Mishnah Daled. Now look what he has here. He made these 2 sheets, worksheets for his students, so that they would be able to have somebody whispering and they would be able to know it better. One thing that he made was a sheet that has real translation. You'll see he has a lot of similarities to to the way ArtScroll did things. So here he says here, it stops. We started from Pashat, okay? So Pashat, he undressed the big dechol in parentheses. So now you'll see Rebbe puts these brackets and parentheses when it's not something that's a direct translation of the word. You'll see ArtScroll does the same thing. So Pashat, he undressed his big dechol, his weekday clothing. Yarad v'taval, literally it means went down and tovel. So he says he went down in parentheses to the mikveh and he did tefillah. You see on the side, it's tefillah number 1, the first time that day, because the Mishnah keeps a running count. Olav and Estapik, he came up and dried himself. Rebbe writes some reasons that he dried himself. The big day kuna might get ruined. The water, nothing was supposed to be between his garments. Hevilo big day zav, the lavash, he put on his big day zav, and he kiddush yad v'raglav. This here was like a stat sheet that he made without the translation. Pashat big dechol, his own big dechol, yarad v'tavel, where he toveled, and this is tefillah number 1. And lavash, this is really like a stat sheet. This is the first time that he put on his big day zav, and Rebbe used this to give the translation. This is the actual text of, we're going to be finished in just a few minutes, and then I'll take your questions. Thank you for your patience. So this is the actual text that appears in ArtScroll's translation. Let's just go back and find it here, right? You see this here? Right? It's on the left side of the page that you're looking at between the 2 lines, and right under it is the notes. So that I just made a larger version so you could see it. So here, the Mishnah continues. So this is a whisper, right? This is a whisper. The Mishnah is just the ArtScroll translation here. The ArtScroll is giving us, whispering in our ear, what this is talking about. The Mishnah continues with its description of the Yom Kippur service. And here, by the way, you see it's left to right because it's primarily in English. You see the words are left to right. The Hebrew stays right to left, but the translation, in order not to make it cumbersome, goes left to right for Gemara and for Mishnah. Okay? Pashat Yarad V'Taval, who, it doesn't say in the Mishnah, so the Kohen Gadol is in brackets. Now, you see the dark font, the bold font, means it's a direct translation. Undressed, descended, and immersed, all are Pashat Yarad V'Taval. Here it says into the mikveh is in brackets. Olav and Estapik, he ascended and dried himself. Hevielo big dezav, they brought him the golden vestments. Here, all 8 vestments, meaning the regular ones plus the extra 4. And he donned them, he put them on. You see, even precisely, look at this. It says there, v'lavash. Look over here in the line above. He donned them. Really, lavash doesn't mean them. Lavash means dressed. So again, it's just reinforcing. If you want to know the translation of the words, look for only the bold ones. V'kidash yadav raglav, and he sanctified his hands and feet. You see these footnotes? I'll show you them in a moment. That's it. We stop there. Now look at this footnote number 6. Right? He sanctified his hands and feet. He used the kior for this, that was the vessel for the sanctification, and he gives a reference. Rashi, see this Tosfos, see Yitzchak, if you want to look up more. And here, the Gemara below will explain that for each change of vestments, the Kohen Gadol sanctified his hands and feet twice. Once when he removed the first set, and when he donned, first time in the morning, he didn't take it off, so he didn't need to go over that. Okay, so we're almost done for today's learning. Here you can see another note that ArtScroll helps us out with. This is actually before the actual Gemara starts here, but it says here, look, normally the Kohen Gadol serves in his 8 special vestments, which include 4 made out of gold, breastplate, Kohen Gadol, right? However, on Yom Kippur, he performed the special services wearing only 4 entirely of linen. A linen sheet was used to shield him when changing, and that reminded him that it was a special service. Tosfos say why, whatever. There's so much on top of this. Let's just finish up some things that I wanted to show you. This Art Scroll has a very large introduction at the beginning of the Masechta, of the tractate, and sometimes for the Perek itself, it might even have 5-6 pages of all the background information, and I strongly advise you to look through them. Look on top here. It says here, general information, Masechtas Yoma. This is at the beginning. The word Yoma, Aramaic for the day, refers to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And then, okay, and then if you look later, I think it was here, at midnight, yeah, look, at daybreak, I'm up on the top left here. They would spread a linen sheet between the Kohen Gadol and the spectators. He would remove his personal clothing. Okay, so this really gives you, I made this slide. There we go. At daybreak, you can see how he, what we learned about. And here it's Mishnah. It shows you where it's referenced. These are 3 Mishnayos. This here is page 28, Daf Chav Ches, Amud Aleph, side 1, page 30, side 1, and page 31, B. And then, there's even a picture there. I took this from Art Scroll. This is a whole diagram of the second temple, the second Beis HaMikdash, to show you exactly where a lot of these places are. Okay? That's it. We're done for the evening now. So let's just very briefly go over what we spoke about. We talked about the tradition. You know what? Let me just bring this up. Let me bring this up just for a moment. Just bear with me for a second. Let's go back to the beginning. I hope I'm not giving you vertigo or anything. Here, you see, here's what I wanted to show you with the Gemara Fundamentals. So this first, I hope we finished one now. You can understand the Mishnah well enough if you have the aid of an Art Scroll Gemara. So all these different tools, the translation, the background, the whispering, the bold highlights, really direct you to be able to master this on your own. It's just, it gets intimidated when you don't know the system. So our agenda items, right? We said we would discuss, job interviews. I didn't tell you that. The idea of that Torah Shebiksav is so short. Like I say, if you go for a job interview, you're not going to find out all the details of the job, where the coffee machine is and how to fill it up and what needs changing. And, the beginning, you just get, big picture. You're working as a receptionist. I want everybody who comes into this building to feel valued and not that they're a burden on you. That's what big idea. And then you go through all the details. How the halachas are conveyed in the Torah. I said about Shabbos, which is just a few words. How Torah Sheba'al Peh was transmitted. We have Torah Shebiksav and Sheba'al Peh pages. I wrote the pages. The reason I'm going over this with you again is as you accumulate the knowledge, it might be helpful to refer back to here. You might even want to check them off. If you're missing something, then this should give you a key to how you're doing in terms of following along. So Torah Shebiksav and Ba'al Peh is pages 4 and 5. The chain of transmission is pages 8 and 9. Committing to paper was Rebbe's Mishnah. 6 Siddharim, right? Those different books are on page 12 and 13. That pages of my workbook. Gaining familiarity with the page, the Mishnah, the numbering system, and getting familiar with the page of Gemara, how Art Scroll works, and reading between the lines, right? The Mishnah is divided into succinct thoughts, and the whispers are in light font, and we read the first 13 words of the Mishnah, and went through the translation, Q&A. Tomorrow night, we're going to actually do Gemara. Okay. I hope that you found that helpful. Chaya, thank you very much. Thank you, Chaya. Fascinating. You listen for another 3 hours. Folks, we're not going to vote on that, all right?
No, it's absolutely fascinating. Totally, absolutely fascinating.
Who's that, Michelle? Who's saying that, Michelle?
Chaya.
Chaya.
And
What do you
yeah,
find fascinating?
the whole thing, I was just sitting open mouth from the Gemara to the Daf to the Amma to the Blat to the Teuchen, the everything. And as a single mother, with my son started Gemara 3 weeks ago for the first time, it's
So
what
proud of you.
it's like. I'm so excited that I'm
Get
gonna
a
have.
hold of his Gemara, get a hold of his Gemara, and start cheating.
Yeah, but the thing is that he doesn't want to review anything. Is that normal?
It's up to him. Sometimes
Really?
you what you should do, I encourage you to find out. I would encourage you to find out from his Rebbe how he's doing in class.
So he's
And
doing well.
then leave him alone. What you
Mhm.
might want to do, and um, I planned on talking about it tomorrow, and I still will, but I first did this talk. I made the title of the original talk was From Ground Floor to Art Scroll in an Hour. That was the title, meaning that, when I published the Chumash and the Gemara books, um, so many people told me, people went to yeshiva all their life, people who didn't, that were so frustrated. They said, that's all I had to know? That's it? Like, right, Michelle, then you say to yourself, yeah, you could have skipped 3 years in school, right? So like one of the people told me, an individual, a brilliant neurosurgeon. We became best friends. He called my wife the day the first Chumash book came out. He said, I've been religious for 20 years. He said, I've done a thing or two with my life. I'm average intelligence. He didn't say he was a brain surgeon. He said, this book, he said, when it came out, he said 5 different friends referred it to him because all his friends knew that he said, I bought every English translation Chumash, and it's so frustrating to me because they don't tell me, like, I feel like I'm missing something. He was so, his mind worked very in an orderly fashion from his training. So he said, yeah, I don't know. I said, everybody said, yeah, you know enough. No, but I don't know it. I don't know. So he actually wound up sponsoring one of the books, a subsequent book. We really became best friends. I actually spoke to him this week. So I made this class. It's called Ground Floor to Art Scroll in an Hour. But Chaya, right?
Yeah.
So I started the class. I was at a sister to sister retreat. For those who don't know, it's a retreat for single mothers. My mom was a single mother for 3 years. Um, my heroine. Anyway, so I was thinking, what can I speak about? So I asked the organizer, I said, Chani Neuberger, I said, Chani, what should I speak about? So she said, whatever you want. So I said, who else is speaking? There are 4 female therapists. So I said, oh, come on, I got that. You got that covered. I'm an educator. I'm a guy. Oh, I'll teach them how to learn Gemara. So I prepared 30 handouts. I didn't think anybody would come. 150 mothers came. There were 300 people there, and and they absolutely loved it. So one of the things I did with them is I said, tell me a Gemara word that you heard more than 50 times and have no idea what it means. And everybody went around the room. It was hysterical. They were laughing. I lost total control of the crowd. Having such a good time. So one of them, a Hasidic woman from Kiryas Yoel, a Satmar lady from Monroe, she asked me, she says, Rabbi Horowitz, in Yiddish, she said, "Was ist so interessant wegen an ox?" She says, "What's so interesting about an ox?" She said, "My son comes home from yeshiva, he picks up the phone, and he talks to his chavrus, his study partner. He said, the ox did this, the ox did this, the ox did that, the ox did this." She says, "What's so interesting? They all look the same. Like, what are they talking about all day?" So this goes to relevancy and the examples we use. So I told her, I said, if you go to the grocery store in Kiryas Yoel, in Satmar, and you let go of the wagon, it rolls down the hill and breaks my headlight. Are you responsible? So you might say, I'm not responsible because I just let go. I didn't push it. And I would say, no, you mean you let go. You knew it would roll down the hill. How about if it was a windy day? Would you be more or less responsible? Um, this is what I used to do with my own students. Um, I would always give them relevant examples. So I'd say, if it was a windy day, you could be more responsible because you knew it was windy, or you'd say, no, it's not my fault. I just ripped it out of my hands. How about if the car tipped over, eggs fell down on the ground, they cracked, and someone slipped on the eggs, so it was only a secondary damage. Would you be responsible for that or not? And then I said, hey, did you find this interesting? Would you want to go to a class on this? She says, yeah, it sounds fascinating. I said, that's what they're talking about. They didn't have parking lots and car services. They had over there, the cars moved around the parking lot. So they're talking about who's responsible if an animal damages another animal. But to listen to what this woman said, and this is my long response to you, Chaya. This is fascinating thought. Some Rabbeim are really good about giving analogies that are relevant and exciting and get kids thinking. Some don't. What you might want to do is, so I told this woman, I said, imagine, I asked the woman, I said, when your son comes home from yeshiva and you ask him, what did you learn today? What does he do? I said, ladies, what are your kids? Every one of them, oh, So I said, when you, I'm sorry, she asked me, she said in Yiddish, does the Rebbe make it exciting like you and talks about analogies that make sense, or they just talk about oxen? So I said, I don't know. But if he's not doing it, this is your opportunity. And that's my answer, long answer to you, Chaya. If you look up the Gemara and you can think of a good example that would really be relevant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in other words, imagine if your son comes home after talking about the oxen and you say, I had an interesting situation in the grocery store. I damaged someone's car, but I didn't really do anything. I just let go and then, went down. Am I responsible or not? I
Right.
said, you'll have him going nuts. He'll be eating out of your hands because you can have a discussion with him about Gemara without cracking out a Gemara with him. So,
Right. Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, right. That makes sense. I could try, definitely.
So find out what they're learning.
I know what they're learning. They're learning Baba Metzia.
Elam Metzias.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, if you send me your address, I'll tell you what. Drop your. Does anybody else have kids that are learning Elam Metzias? Anyone? Oh, I got Michelle and Chaya. I will send you. Private message me if you don't want to share with the others. Private message me your email addresses, and I'll send you right away digital files to the full book of ours, which is much more explanatory than ArtScroll is.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll be honored to. So just send me your email addresses. You can post it here, whatever. But I'll do it before I go to sleep. I'll just send you the files, and it's really good stuff. And it really walks you through it. Tomorrow, Sunday, I'm going to go through actual Gemara learning and show you, some of the tools that Rabbi Spivak made. But that's if he's doing well in school, that's great. If you could learn it and say, I saw that, he's going to go nuts. How did you learn Gemara? What is that? So whatever. I think it's a great segue, if that works. Okay. Anybody
Okay.
else?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My greatest pleasure. When I hear this reaction, Chaya and all of you, it's like laughter for a comedian. It's great. I love it. Imagine that you'd love to get the worksheets as well. Lauren, which worksheets are you talking about for tonight? Okay, so you know what I'm going to do? Baba Metzia. Oh, great, sure. So I'll send you the whole book. There's an introductory section, and then there's the Gemara itself. I'll be honored to send it to you. I'm going to take a picture. I'm not sure if these messages stay afterwards. Let me just take a screenshot. I think I have 3. If anybody else wants one, now's your time. Okay. Anybody else have questions, guys? Okay. Have a beautiful Shabbos. I'll see you on Sunday. I hope that you all found it helpful. And we're going to build on this on Sunday and actually, take you through some Gemara and show you a lot of logic. It's that part. This was the more detail-oriented part. I think you'll enjoy that part even more. Have a beautiful Shabbos, everyone. I'm gonna record this and
Thank you again.
put it in the file. My greatest pleasure. Good night, everyone. Good Shabbos.
Thank you.
Be well.